Welcome to CIHT Podcasts.
Innovation is, at its core, about solving problems. The response to COVID-19, a global pandemic, illustrates how we all have to be innovative to a smaller or greater extent, to test existing medicines, to developing a new vaccine, to an economic response, and so on. For our transport system, this has meant a combination of things: innovation of processes, of how we work, of applying technology. But the transport sector has long been innovating, augmenting the power of humans through the use of exoskeletons, to the deployment of sensors and satellites to enable us to see and hear beyond our own limited human capacities. I'm delighted to be exploring all of this and more with my guest today. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
For me, it's recognising that we've got a fantastic opportunity over the next 10 years in our sectors to really capitalise on what we're doing around decarbonisation, active mobility. That link between highways and public health has probably never been stronger. And the opportunity to innovate and make change through this window, through collaboration, like what we've seen over the last 2 months in particular, of what can be done, how quickly things can be done if we're all working together on a combined outcome, is really exciting. And you then link in automation, modularization, data maturation, all of these things that can be enablers to that. But fundamentally, if you've got public and private partnerships working collaboratively through all layers of those organizations on both sides, integrating the problems that we've faced, we've got a real exciting 10 years in front of us, frankly. Yeah, so I'm David Ogden. I am business director in Amey. I look after our local roads and street lighting business, but also the strategic direction of the highway sector.
And Amey covers a number of sectors, doesn't it? It's not just highways, but other...
Yeah, well, we are split into transport infrastructure, which covers rail, highways and waste collections. And then we have secure infrastructure, which is all of our work with the MOD, the MOJ, schools, all of those types of clients. And then we have utilities and we have waste treatment as well as at the heart of it all is our consulting business, which has involvement with all of those sectors, drives what we do as a business.
And at some point, am I right that there was a call about a level of automation that Amey would seek to move their business to?
Yeah, so in Amey, we are working towards our Vision 2030, which at the heart of it is about taking people out of the live network within the highways operations. But when you think about that and you think about the things that it touches and the opportunity it creates for inclusion and diversity within the workforce by changing the way in which we actually carry out activities in a safer, more efficient way, it creates an opportunity for traditional roles to be more inclusive, but it also introduces opportunities for completely new roles linked to what we're going through with the data transformation into our sector. So although automation is at the heart of what we do or what we're trying to achieve through Vision 2030, it touches everything from safety to customer to people throughout that whole end-to-end spectrum within the business.
Because there is a big issue that the industry's aware of. It's maybe not so widely known, but about road worker safety and the exposure to risk, and then removing road workers from harm should really be pushed and secured for the workforce, because there's clearly a challenge there at the moment. The risk exposure is much higher than for other road users.
Well, there's projects that we're working on at the moment, for example, with Highways England and a number of partners in an autonomous IPV, impact protection vehicle. That type of automation, that type of innovation changing the ways in which the work is done on the ground and the situations that we're putting operatives in currently and have done for many years before, as well as improving the end-to-end journey effect for the customer and the safety on the network for the customer. They're the types of opportunities that we're looking at within Vision 2030 of how we can really transform the way in which we deliver service through automation.
And some of this thinking touched on exoskeletons. Can you tell me your ideas on that? Because that's interesting and why it might be important.
So we did a trial on the Forth Road Bridge, actually, with the exoskeletal, and it was because one of the key risk areas within our industries is manual handling and fatigue for being in positions doing certain activities for a long period of time. And in particular on the bridges, that was an area that we wanted to focus on. So we carried out an innovation project within Amey where all of our accounts submitted ideas of challenges that they had that they were looking to find a solution for. And the exoskeletal solution was put forward by the Forth Road Bridge team as an opportunity to trial. So we did exactly that. We invested in the equipment and ran the trials as to whether that equipment could be used in those activities. And as a consequence, what we've actually identified is that it's got a wider reach of opportunity within some of the other activities within Amey. So they're the type of things that we want to explore, that we think creates a lot of opportunity for the sector to do things safer. And again, sort of links back through into that opportunity to make, traditional roles more inclusive and diverse and more open to a wider range of people who will be able to conduct them moving forward.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Forth Bridge. I know that there was there was a whole heap of innovation being put into that project, and it's won a number of awards. So credit to my home country, Scotland. Great work there. But also some of the stuff, I guess it was drones. I know that you had use of that and virtual reality. Can you tell me a bit about the innovations there? Because I think there is some world-class leading stuff that was being pushed.
Yeah, so I mentioned when I was talking about Amey, the consulting business is the heart of our business, and through our strategic consulting team have led the innovation around the sensorization of the bridge, leading to a lot of data analytics, but machine learning from predictive analytics essentially is to ensuring that we know when components need to be maintained and repaired and replaced, which is an incredibly useful innovation that we've put through on that structure, and one that we're spreading out across wider initiatives within that market area. But as you say, we've also trialed drones for the inspections. We're also working on something called Amey VTOL, which is a different type of drone, but it's the beyond line of sight drone. So they're the types of things that we would use within rail and highways for inspections, for example. And we're working to progress that legislation to enable that type of technology to be progressed beyond line of sight, which is something that I think Amey VTOL is the first to achieve that. But the drones in Forth Road Bridge were around inspections, and again, that's what the virtual reality has been used for as well. So our inspectors are using virtual reality to do their inspections on the structure, using the other technologies that are linking into that instead of physically going onto the bridge. So again, it's removing the individual from that risk situation and using technology and automation and data learning to enable that to happen.
And sometimes things can now be built off site. There's more of that, and I know in the business of housing, that's certainly modular construction is something that's emerged. What's the kind of developments in that sphere?
I think, modular construction without a doubt. So to give you a really simple example, okay, and there are much bigger examples, so there's been modular construction in bridge installations within the Highways England network as an example. But to give you a really simple one with the electric vehicle infrastructure installation that's going on, traditionally we'd have built a concrete plinth that would have taken 3 days with multiple visits to do the excavation, put the formwork in, drop the concrete in, wait for that to go off. Someone else then goes back, take the formwork off, etc., etc. Well, that's just now moved to precast installation. So it's removed manual handling. It's a mechanical lift into position. There's no repeat visits, so you've restricted the amount of time that a team are on site to be in a risk situation. You removed manual handling, you sped up the process, so it's got a better outcome for the customer as well. And it's very, very simple things like that that can have that end-to-end effect on, well, from safety to customer and all of the things in between.
And time on site, I guess it's less.
Absolutely, efficiency, productivity, all of those things. Yeah, it's moved, it's reduced a 3-day operation to one. Part of one,
How should the industry approach innovation? You've illustrated some examples earlier. More generally, how should it approach innovation?
Well, I've got a simple answer to that. It's openly and collaboratively. I think there's a number of examples recently, such as the Adept Live Labs, the HE approach within designated funds, as an example of how collectively and through initiatives like the Highway Sector Council as an example of how, as a sector, we can come together and collaboratively learn from each other and innovate throughout all layers of the industry, large and small, public and private, that opportunity to work together to utilize and learn from each other instead of replicating what each other are doing. I think through this next 10-year window, again, we've got a fantastic opportunity to do that. But the key to it all is that open, collaborative approach to innovation.
It's interesting you mention that, because a core to this element is procurement. In the July 2018 Public Administration Select Committee report after Carillion public sector outsourcing and contracting, they signposted that the situation had been exacerbated by the long-term ineffectiveness of government procurement, and specifically about how government procurement had been driven by price with little appreciation of the differences in quality contractors may be offering. What do you think needs to happen in terms of procurement to ensure that we move away from such situations in the past, for instance, with Carillion?
So again, I think this window of opportunity over the next, particularly around the procurement cycles. So over the next 5 years, Highways England would have re-procured their partners for the next 8 to 15 years. Transport Scotland will have done the same for the next 10 to 12 years. Local authorities, there will be, I think it's about 41 opportunities coming to the market over the next 5 years in local authorities. And there is therefore a fantastic opportunity for the right partnerships to be formed to enable the opportunities and challenges that are created through decarbonisation, the growth of the economy over the next 10, 15 years to really move forward. It's as big of a challenge as it is an opportunity, because if we get it right, all the things we've just been talking about with open, collaborative delivery, sharing across the sector through the right partnerships, moving the sector forward for UK PLC could really step forward. If we get it wrong, we could miss a fantastic opportunity that we're not going to get again for another 10 to 15 years, which would be criminal, really. So for me, what is fundamental through the procurement process over the next 4 or 5 years is whichever mechanism is chosen, and there isn't one size that fits all, is that it creates the right partnerships, that it creates the flexibility and opportunity within those partnerships to develop the innovation that's going to be required to deliver net zero, to assist in that modal shift, to continue the acceleration of the decarbonisation agenda that we've seen as an outcome of what we've reacted to within COVID-19. therefore, if we can get that right and get those partnerships right, I think it could be a really exciting period for our sectors.
And in terms of the future of the sector, we hear also now about digital roads and Highways England pushing for that. What is that exactly? What does that mean, and why is it important?
So we're at a point again where data maturation is upon us, where for many years we've been collecting a lot of information, a lot of data, but perhaps haven't had the technologies to actually use it appropriately and effectively. Well, that's now changing. You know, talking earlier about the predictive analytics and machine learning opportunities that we've got available to us now. So we're seeing a point where both in strategic and local roads, that decisions can start to be commissioned from the data that we're collecting. The ways in which the infrastructure are going to be used over the next 20, 30-year horizon are going to change. At exactly what point is anyone's, I wouldn't say guess, but you know, people have different views on when different things are going to come in, you know, like connected autonomous vehicles. When will they take off? People have different views. But what we've got to be looking at is, what does the network need to look like by 2050? What steps do we need to take to enable that to happen? And what Highways England are doing through their RIS cycles is preparing their network for the future. And they're the steps that we're looking to work with them on as a key supplier and partner to Highways England, to make sure that we are the right partner to enable them to unlock those opportunities. You know, by bringing in, in an integrated way, partners into those solutions. You know, we don't have all of the answers. We wouldn't claim to have all the answers, you know, as an individual or as an organization, you know, but by working in collaboration, again, talking openly and working openly with partners to deliver that value chain, to help Highways England deliver that digital roads. Another terminology that's used is the naked highway, around enabling technology to improve safety, customer journey time, clean air, those types of agendas within the strategic network. But of course, they're absolutely equaled within the MRN as well as the local road network.
And this concept of the naked highway relates to the fact that you can remove roadside information because it will be beamed directly into the car. And this is the idea of connected vehicles. I guess the connection to the infrastructure is much more evolved than it is currently. I was going to ask briefly about the European Space Agency. Have there been any links there? I know that's sort of final and perhaps concluding question. We'll go up to space to have a look at why space is important for what drives on our networks. Yeah. Anything on that? And then
well, I don't know too much about the European Space Agency, if I'm honest, but where I know that we as a sector are using satellite information is, and again, how we use that differently moving forward is again around the predictive analytics piece, is that we've done trials, and I'm aware of others doing trials in this space, where you can predict the movement and failure of a road surface from space, from the satellite information, by detecting movement. And we've successfully predicted when a piece of road was going to fail. The reason why it's failed may be multiple. It may be because of a sewer failure below the surface. It may be because of something within the infrastructure of the highways makeup. But that type of technology is available to the sector now. The information is currently quite expensive, but that will change. And you know, SpaceX and those types of people are going to change the way in which that whole space literally is used moving forward. And is there an opportunity within the highways and transport? Well, of course there must be. We're already looking at technologies from that arena, and I can only imagine that those opportunities will grow in the future.
Well, thank you very much. That was an interview with David Ogden from Amey. Thanks again for your time. Right, I'll leave it running. I just threw a whole load of stuff at you.
Space agency.
It was good that you had an answer. Sorry, that was probably the most rambling interview I've done. But it was quite interesting, though. I think if I was listening to something, I'd rather hook on probably something a bit more like automation or exoskeletons, drone. That kind of stuff might appeal to me just more generally. I'd be like, well, what's going on with that stuff? Than just being a bit more generic. If that's okay, that was my sort of.
Yeah, I suppose no, absolutely fine, absolutely fine. I think the key bit for me, as I said at the beginning, is that I'm really excited about how highways could be seen differently in the hierarchy of infrastructure and importance within the UK over the next 10, 15 years. That point about it being an enabler to economic growth and decarbonisation, the enabler for active mobility, the acceleration of that as a consequence of what we're going through, that link to public health, that recognition that the highways infrastructure is multimodal, that recognition also that the customer, and whether it be a private individual or an organization and a business, doesn't really differentiate between whether it's a local road, an MRN, or a strategic road. They're more interested in safety and journey time and the things that impact them personally and their business. I just think that innovation, can go across many streams, whether it be a service improvement or a process improvement through to automation, modulation, data technologies, drones, and everything else. But all of those elements have an impact on the outcomes of the network and to the customers. And I just think that if we can do that open and collaboratively through this window, and going back to your point on procurement, fundamentally ensuring that whichever mechanisms and procurement methods are used, that the right partnerships are formed, not necessarily just locally, but across the sector, and that those partnerships then collaborate openly, we're in for a hell of a ride over the next 10 to 15 years, and it could be really exciting. And that's the bit around innovation for me. It's that sometimes, people think of it as this big single thing. For me, it's multiple and is multifaceted, and you look at it through different lenses and you get different outcomes. If we've captured that, great. What's been demonstrated through COVID-19, Justin, is that how quickly the sectors have reacted to enable operations to continue safely, to change the ways in which activities are being conducted, to collaborate, like with what we've seen through the Highway Sector Council as an example, and there's been many other examples, but through the CLC, through the HSC, which brought together CIHT, ADEPT, Highways England, DFT, as well as the private organisations within that sector, that just accelerated the learning and through the changes. And of course, as a country, we've been forced into this change where it's no longer up against the challenges. Well, it's always been done that way. It's not just one organisation saying, "Oh, we've all got to work from home." It's everyone, and look how quickly we've all adapted to it, to now the point where the new normal that's being spoken about is not returning back to the office. Who would have imagined, if you'd said that to me 3 months ago, I'd have said, yeah, lovely idea. However, it means it's okay for one organisation to try it. But as soon as you bump into someone else who doesn't agree with that approach, you're back into an office, you're back into a meeting room. Look what's happened. I mean, it's been a really difficult situation for everyone. But there have been some things that have been demonstrated by our sector and many others that you just sit back and you think, crikey, look at what's been achieved in that short period of time. It's what, been 12 weeks? Feels a lot longer than that, doesn't it? With what's been achieved in that 12-week window. It's incredible.